All right, and we are live. Hi, everyone. It is Laqwanda. Welcome to Laqwanda's Heart. And this week, we are having another installment of our live stream wellness series. And I am welcoming Benjamin Batts, who is the co-founder of Black Men Feel. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome. So we
Hi
are
everyone, how's it going?
It's going well. We are so excited to have you tonight to join us. We are going to be talking about a Black man's path to self-realization. And before we dive into that huge conversation, I want you to give us an opportunity of telling us who you are. I found you on Instagram. And so I would like for, our audience to know who you are, more about you, more about Black Men Feel, and more about how that came about. How did you get to that point? And I know we're going to get more into your story when we start talking about self-realization. But just start us off and just let us know, who is Benjamin Bat?
Definitely. Like I said, Benjamin Batts. I'm from New York, born and raised. Grew up in Yonkers. Back and forth between Yonkers and Harlem with both of my, parents in both cities. And as of right now, I still do my 9 to 5, working in digital advertising, working with some of the biggest brands that you could think of, like a Hulu, Spotify, Pandora, those kind of guys. Doing digital manager and digital media investment there. But in my spare time, what I work on is Black Men Feel. And I know you asked pretty much how it came about. For anyone who's not familiar, Black Men Feel, what we do is we create safe spaces for men of color to be vulnerable, learn about mental health, also learn about just debunking some of the myths around the stigmas with mental health, which is a big burden within the Black community, and ultimately just have a time every month that they know that they can come out and get whatever's on their chest off of it and just work towards healing and living a more mentally healthier life. Um, Ultimately, how Black Men Feel came about, it was like really perfect timing where I was going through this stint in therapy where, like, 3 weeks straight, I was having these major breakthroughs, and I just kept feeling the difference it was making in my life, and how uh, just more aware I was about my emotions, how I was able to mitigate those issues whenever I started to feel myself getting a little bit uneasy or dipping back into like any kind of like depressive or sad state. And at that same time, one of my best friends from middle school, Sam, the other co-founder of Black Men Feel, he called me one day because he was having a conversation with one of our close friends about, how I feel like everybody knows how it is. You're hanging out with your boys, you start drinking, that's when everybody gets emotional, I love you, bro, these kind of things, and everyone's uh, kind of starts peeling back the layers, the walls that they keep up. So they got into a huge conversation that went down this whole road of my friend dealing with past sexual abuse and past trauma and how it was affecting his relationship with his daughter today. And then come to realize his father was there too, and his father started speaking about sexual abuse he dealt with. So it's like within that conversation, you're unlayering generational trauma, you're unlayering how this is affecting his relationship with his loved ones at that time. And throughout the duration of that conversation, it ultimately led to him saying, my friend Sam saying, like, speak to Ben. He actually goes to therapy and does all of these things. And my friend's first initial reaction was like, he goes to therapy? Like, they still have that idea, like, if you go to therapy, you're crazy or something like that. And, me and him ultimately spoke. But when me and Sam had that conversation, I just felt then and there, like, look, this is an issue that's prominent right now, and we can actually do something to impact this. And I'll say the end of this happened the end of October, like maybe right around Halloween weekend, and we set up a meeting 3 weeks later and had like amazing attendance. Probably around 15 plus people came out to our first session, and we've been going with it ever since.
Wow, that is amazing. Um, wow, that is amazing. I think one thing that I love about the work that you're doing is that it's rooted in personal experience and is rooted in this level of understanding. I'm the founder of Healing Black Women, and it came from my instance, it came from I was coming out of another depressive episode. And I was looking and searching for a place where people who look like me could, vent and receive encouragement and things of that nature. And I just could not find a lot. And I said, you know what? Let me reach out. Let me reach out to some people that I know. And I started reaching out to these women that I've known over the years. And I said, hey, can you come on board? Can you come on board? And I started getting all these yeses. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. Like, let's create this environment for healing of all different types of healing. And the thing that I love about it is people don't always realize how much of their purpose is meant and comes out of and is birthed from their own personal experiences. And so that's what I love about the work that you're doing. And you're currently in New York, correct?
Yep, New York still here kicking.
That is so awesome. And the fact that you've had well attended events, it led us to know that, men, because we tend to think that healing and getting past things are just for women, and we're the only people who's really gonna push healing, and you guys are gonna always sweep things under the rug. So to see you guys actually doing this work and actually having people come to connect and to understand that it's not just them. I love the idea that there's this group of men there sharing their vulnerabilities, and that is not something that you find so often. So I commend you 100%, you and your co-founder, for creating that safe space where you can, heal and still feel, that level of support from your brothers.
I mean, definitely. I was gonna say one thing that we've learned even through doing the events has been that there's this like I won't even call it a facade. It is true that I mean we were all taught incorrectly. These are all learned behaviors to sweep all of this under the rug. We were always taught man up. You're the man of the house. You're supposed to carry the burden, carry whatever. Like you don't show any emotion. So it's what we didn't realize growing up is that all of that stuff was starting to come out in toxic ways because what do we all immediately turn to? Let's go get drunk every weekend. Let's go smoke. Let's go do all of this. What happens when people's pride are getting hurt in the hood? People are acting out because you're angry. Damn, I can't remember who said the quote, but it was like it might have been like J. Cole or someone. They were saying like people are hurt because it's like when a lot of fights start because like, yo, he's looking at me. And it's like, yo, I don't want you to see me. People don't want to be seen for who they really are. Like you're seeing that I'm hurting. I don't want you to actually see me. And that really stuck with me. And I'm like, yo, it's so valid. Like, it's like when you give this platform to people to actually come out and speak, we literally have sessions where 9 times out of 10, I end up spending more money to book the room a little bit longer because people have so much to get off their chest. So typically each session is maybe 2.5 hours. We sometimes end up in there for 3.5 hours because there's so much to unpack. And like for me, I always think back. I will never in my life forget my first day ever sitting in therapy, and I was like, I don't I said in there, and I was just like, I don't really know what to say. This is all really weird and new to me. And my therapist was just like, honestly, just like whatever you want to talk about. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And next thing I know, an hour later, I'm still talking. Like I never shut up the whole time. And I immediately felt the burden lift off of my chest because that's the first time I feel like someone asked, how are you feeling? How are you doing? And was really genuinely there to receive what I had to say versus, a lot of times we will say like, hey, how you doing, bro? I'm good. And that's the end of the conversation. So ever since then, like I've been making it a point when I ask any of my friends, I'm speaking to any of my friends, what's going on, bro? Yo, I'm good. All right, no, but really, like, how are you feeling? Like, tell me what's up, what's new, what's going on. And like I've seen a change even in my immediate circle.
Again, I'm just in awe right now because I love seeing this type of work done, and people understanding. And the thing that I'm loving is that you understand that there's a purpose in all of this and you can see it. And, it fuels that level of passion. Now, I know tonight and I know you were sharing part of your story with us. We were talking about self-realization. So I want you to take us into that. When you think about self-realization, what's coming to you? What does that see? How do you see that?
You mean like in terms of what I see, like for myself as self-realization, or my like I guess the approach to it that I took? Just
Let's look at just basically, self-realization for yourself, for your how you dealt with it and coming to that point in journey of yourself, and then talk about the steps that you took to get
okay. Well, I mean, I guess I'll start with how I even got on this whole journey. I would say looking back at 20 like 2016, going into 2017, like it was just a rough year. Like within the course of a couple months, I lost my frat brother, one of my really close friends, to like freak accidents with vehicles, and then a couple months later, I lost my cousin to a drug overdose, and I don't feel like I truly ever um, like coped with it. I never grieved it correctly. Like I think I'll go back literally the same day I found out that my frat brother passed. My co-founder Sam, he came over to the house, and we just like we smoked. Like we smoked like all day and just reminisced and talked. And at the time it was like I like it's making me feel good in this moment, not realizing what we were actually doing was numbing the pain instead of dealing with it. Um, and then, you know, I realized like never really dealing with any of that was going on, and just moving forward in life. Flash forward, it the thing about death, it makes you really think about life a lot. Think makes you think about your own life heavily. And I was just going through this really um, introspective time. Like I would say that birthday of my 2016 birthday was like the most anxiety driven day of my life because at that point I'm like, damn, I turned 26. I was like, yo, I'm past the 25th, 25 birthday mark. I don't really feel like I found what I'm passionate about yet. I did like, you just have that idea of like I'm not where I want to be. I don't know where I'm going. Like I always take it back to feeling like I was just like, and it's crazy because I read a book at that same around that same time called The Defining Decade, which I recommend to everybody in their 20s because like I resonated with this one chapter it was this dude that was like, yo, I feel like I'm just in the ocean and I don't know where I'm going. Like I don't see land anywhere I'm going. I'm just paddling, trying to stay afloat. And I'm like, when you're at this point in life where you're just trying to maintain instead of moving with purpose, that's a really like it's a it's a it's like it's a burden. Like I don't know any other way to put it. It's a really dark place. I would say that's one of my darkest places I was ever in. And then flash forward to the summer of 2017. I started saving around that time because I was just like, I need to make a drastic change. So I started saving, and I ultimately quit my job because I was like, I'm not doing anything that's giving me purpose, and I didn't I didn't like the people I worked with. I didn't like what I was doing, and I just didn't like where I was at in life. And I'm one of those people that I was just like, I need a hard reset. So I did that, and in my head, thinking I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take a break for 2 3 months and go back to work. And then here I am. This this unemployment lasted 8 months, like, and I only planned for 3. So as you can see, things got really like dire. You know, you start once you start digging into savings and do it. Like I really felt like I had hit rock bottom, and I think, especially still at that time, one of the things you always learned growing up was like, yo, you're a man, you got to be able to provide for your household. And I'm like, yo, I can't even like I'm not able to even, do for my fiance what I really wanted to do, or like help my mom out with things. Like I was just like, I'm this cornerstone of this household, of this family, and I wasn't doing that either. So I feel like at that point, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm a failure at everything, and it drove me to therapy. Like I never thought about therapy before, but I just that was my first time experiencing a anxiety attack. First time, like, really, I never probably cried that much in a ever, like, and it just made me do a hard reset. But what the I never forget the defining moment that really set me on this journey of understanding myself was I like probably the week I quit my job, I sat down and I was like, all right, I got this time to myself. Let me go do something I like. And I sat there and I really sat there for like an hour trying to think, what do I even like to do? And I couldn't think of any interests, passions, anything, because my whole life at that point was just, yeah, I got to get money. I got to do all of these, like, sorry for lack of better words, but I was just doing all the bullshit to that I was taught was correct. Get a good job, start a family, do all those type of things, um, versus really finding out who I was. To really get to a point where you're like, I've lived 25 plus years of life and I don't know me. It's like it was mind blowing to me. I don't know any other way to put it. So that was one of my biggest things when I started therapy. I was just like, yo, I don't really like. I'm scared because I don't know who I am. Um, and just going through therapy and really figuring out, like, have conversations with yourself, dig deeper into, like, what were some of the things that you've learned that you feel like you should unlearn? How'd you get to this point? And just really starting to unpack a lot of the things that got me to the place I was. Um, and it ultimately led me to, I would say, like, a lot of my saving graces was meditation. It's huge. Meditation became huge for me, and visualization within meditation. So really figuring out this person you really want to be, and just thinking about that constantly. It's like the law of attraction at the end of the day. If you have this notion, this understanding of where you want to be, who you want to be, hone in on it, and constantly make that a part of your life. I'm a big advocate of self maintenance every single day. Like whatever it is, an hour, whatever you can spare, you have to dedicate time to yourself every day. And I wasn't doing that. Like I wasn't doing that. And that's the most dangerous thing you can ever do, because you're not spending time with the most important person in your life, yourself. um so like between meditation and I started writing, like really reflecting, like, right, I started a journal, just wrote every day. um and it ultimately just I started to figure out the direction I really wanted to move into, and and I feel like it was a natural progression into what ultimately became Black Men Feel. Um, because even before Black Men Feel, I used to do a podcast with with my co-founder Sam and another one of my frat brothers, and that whole podcast started because we were all working 9 to 5s, in which many of us were one of few people within the job. So we got to this point where, you're code switching in these jobs, which is another layer of losing yourself, because you're pretending to be this person every day so that you don't make others feel uncomfortable at work. And we started the podcast, so we knew we had a time every week where we can just talk to our friends and just kick it and speak about things you wanted to speak on. And naturally, we started venting and speaking about and unpacking past trauma on literally on air, and people started resonating with it. And then, the show ultimately ended, and I kept that one portion of it and just decided I needed to move on, because if this feeling it like I can feel this good from understanding my own like unpacking my own trauma, understanding how to be mentally healthier. Like I can't be I can't say I'm for the culture. I can't say I'm giving back to the hood. I can't do none of that if I'm not sharing that wisdom with everybody I can. So like we had to get it done.
One thing, a couple of things that you mentioned that popped out with me, and one is the bullshit that everybody fall into, because I almost became victim of that one. Um, a good friend of mine that I thought was about to become my best friend. I thought she was about to be my best friend because I found her. We worked together, but we found each other and we clicked. And we had shared experiences when it came to mental health. When I was hospitalized in 2017, she was the person that, really was supportive of me, helped me navigate, through everything. And then the next month, she passed away. Just had a simple outpatient surgery, and a couple of days later, she was gone. And I went down. I mean, I went down so quick. And actually, the day of her service, I was actually in therapy because I couldn't go to her service. Um, but one thing I noticed, began to rotate in and out of depressive episodes, and I began to question myself a lot. And I was finding myself where I was needed to come to that hard reset. I've had a couple of hard resets in my life, and I am 40. And I have had a couple of hard resets. And one thing that I noticed is that when I had gotten my job, because my full-time job, I'm in mental health advocacy at a national nonprofit. When I got that job, I thought that I was 100% in my purpose. But what I realized was and we discussed this last week, I was adulting. I was paying bills, going to work, taking care of things, but there was something missing. Why do you think people fall into that trap, into that I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do trap? And we never seek out anything else. And we're really unhappy. And we're living, with this layer of unhappiness. And when other things in life happens, that pushes us down even more. And we don't have those positive things to reach for to help pull us out. Like you said in your when you were thinking about your hard reset, you sat there and you were trying to think about what is it that you really like. And so why do you think we're in this mode now where we're giving so much of ourselves to all these things, but we're really not soaking in what's important to us? We're really not taking that time. We're just living from one moment to the next, but we're not experiencing or creating moments that are meaningful to us. and really that helped
Um,
maintain it.
I I personally feel like it's because it's comfortable, it's easy. It's you get to this point where you've worked, you're getting the raises, and you start to feel like you're making progress because like you take a step back and you look at what they call the rat race and what we're doing and how like you go you work a job. I've really sat and thought about this a lot. Like you're working this job where work is never going to be done. No matter how much you do, how quick you get it done, the work is going to always continue and you're always going to get the same salary. And then what they're going to and then you get these incremental raises so that you feel like you're making headway. Like you're building, like last year I was making 50,000. Now I'm making 60. Now I'm making 70. Like I'm achieving, you know, and it's hard. Like it's easy to get caught in that. It's a routine thing. Like I'm comfortable. I know my bills are paid. Everything's good. It's scary. To be uncomfortable is scary. Like it's scary as hell once you start to take a step out of the usual and really start to think about, okay, like I think a lot of us have that feeling inside of something's missing, something doesn't feel right, and a lot of people aren't I don't want it to sound like I'm shaming people, but it's it takes a lot to really dig deeper into that emotion. That's a scary thing. It was scary when I did it. I know, and um I'm a big advocate and big fan of Diddy. And one thing he said to me that always stuck with me, he was like, "Yo, people are scared. It's the fear of the not knowing. Like you don't know what's gonna be down that path, you know." And the craziest thing is that's where the most growth is. The minute you start doing something that's gonna make you feel uncomfortable, that's gonna scare you a little bit, that's where all the growth is, all the success, all the happiness. Like it's down that road. It's just a tough road to go down.
I think one of the reasons also why it can be so tough sometimes is because we're never really taught how to deal with those emotions that we're going to experience when we go down that path. Because I can speak from a Black woman. My mother raised 6 kids, by herself, a survivor of domestic violence. She, worked long hours, went to school. She had this S on her chest, right? And so if something happened, we never heard, about it. If she was down, we never heard about it because you have to be this strong person that can accomplish everything, and these are the models that we see. And so we internalize that is who I have to be as well. I have to be that person that holds it all together. I have to be that person who doesn't cry, or if I do cry, I only cry for a day, then I keep on going. See, that's a problem with me because some days I'm crying for a week at a time, and I can't get up the next day and just brush it off and say, I only have this amount of time to take care of things. I can't do that. I literally shut down. I shut down the beginning of this year for 2 weeks, and I did not go to work. I was in my bed trying to figure out when I was going to get the strength to get up and take a bath. I couldn't even deal with everything else. But see, we're not taught to deal with those emotions. And those emotions terrify us because, like you said, it's uncomfortable. We don't know how to properly deal with it. And then we tell ourselves, I ain't going to see no therapist. I ain't crazy. That's
I
what
was gonna say, I actually take you one step further on that. You're saying that we're not even taught to deal with those emotions. We're not even taught that it's normal. Like when I first learned to learn that it's okay to not be okay. Jesus Christ, like my mind was blown. like I watched this show which I 1,000% recommend to everybody. The show called BoJack Horseman. It's a cartoon. People might think it's weird, but it is the realest thing you'll ever see. It's all about mental health. And there was this scene where one of the characters said, it takes a long time to realize that you're not okay, and even longer to realize it doesn't have to be that way. Because the minute you realize that something is wrong and you can have that tough conversation to acknowledge it and start to, then and only then you can start to do the work to fix it properly, you know?
And let me say, because I agree with that so much, because I'm a former therapist. Anyone who knows I'm a former therapist, and I had to stop practicing because when I became ill after my first hospitalization. Um, After my first hospitalization, it took me. I went to school. I know what to say. I have the DSM that I can look and see the symptoms. I used to diagnose people too. It took me a long time to be able to say, yeah, you really are dealing with depression. And when that diagnosis became final for bipolar disorder, I was like, what? And I was dealing with psychosis as well. And I was like, what? But it took me time, even though I was in the field, and even though it takes time for you to understand that, hey, there's other people who are dealing with that, millions of people who are dealing with it. And it takes time for you to be able to see yourself and understand that you have this chronic illness that you're going to be managing, and it may rear its ugly head up sometime. And for me, I was so angry. That was my my first hard reset, when I had to stop practicing. I was furious, and I did not want to truly accept my diagnoses because I felt like it robbed me of everything. But that was almost 10 years ago. And now I'm like, my whole life has circled around understanding and promoting and telling people about that I have this condition. That's how I got my job, you know. But the
Mm.
thing is, it took time, and we can sometimes get discouraged, because I got discouraged when I could not go to work and I thought I had found my purpose. You could not, when I was a therapist, I thought I was in my purpose. And then when I stopped being a therapist, that put me on the road to truly be in the purpose that I have. But that was a terrifying journey, and it was difficult for me. So I have a level of understanding for people who are not sure what's going on and don't realize, like you said, we're not even taught that, hey, this is actually normal, because normal is defined as not having a condition. But it's millions of us who have these conditions. And it really is a part of your overall health, and it really is a part of your overall wellness journey. And as we continue to go through and tell people, and that's the thing that I love about the work that you're doing, because the more people that step in that room, that first group you had, that's 15 generations that are being taught how to express themselves. 15 generations who are being taught how to understand that they have emotions. And one thing, and children pay attention. My child, who knows I've been hospitalized, she'll be 14 this summer. She called me one day and she said, "Mommy, I was crying at lunch and I couldn't stop." And I was like, "Really?" She said, "Yes, I was stressed out." And you know what she did? She went to the school counselor and she sat down, she talked to the school counselor. And those are the seeds that we are planting when we first acknowledge that it's okay, like you said, not to be okay. And that not being okay is a part of our overall wellness that we can work on. And we get this Hollywood mentality of what it is to deal with these conditions is like, because we have to fight against those misconceptions of who we are and who we are not. And that's the thing I want to talk to you. I want you to delve into a little bit. Is when it comes to Black men, there are so many misconceptions that y'all don't have emotions. Y'all don't care. Y'all just, think y'all just rub things off your back and you keep on going. How difficult is it to fight through those misconceptions as you're on this journey to becoming whole and healing?
I mean, it's tough, but it's also like you're learning, and I think that's what's exciting to me, because post school, it's like you have to really seek out new knowledge, and every like every idea, like for me, I guess one of my big things that I've adopted just through therapy is that I question everything, every surface emotion. Why does this make me angry? This makes me angry because uh whatever, because of this situation that happened a couple years ago. Why did that situation, like, I dig deeper and deeper and deeper until I can get into the root of why that's bothering me. And then it also makes me think about some of the things I've learned, and I question, and I've just started to question things I've learned. Like, I think about a perfect example. I was in therapy, and we just got on the subject of my grandmother. And when I say my grandmother was hands down the most important person in my life ever, she passed away when I was about 14, 15. And I started to feel myself like begin to tear up. Um, and I caught myself and like stopped myself from crying. And afterwards, I'm like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Like, it's perfectly normal. like you're dealing with grief. It's perfectly normal." Um, and it made me dig deeper into why was I taught this? Why did I learn this? And I mean, I'm not speaking based on a book, just speaking like from my own thoughts. And I just think about, we also grew up in totally different times as well. Like, I feel like we're in this time where we are allotted a lot more leeway to really dig into those emotions and really have the opportunity to feel. You think about the people that taught us, like, I'm learning all of this from my father, who learned from our grandfather. There wasn't no time to have a there wasn't no time to be crying and be soft during segregation. Like, there's like, you had a lot more things to deal with than trying to figure out yourself and your own emotion. You're just trying to get through life. So you're getting that taught down to my pops. My pops is teaching me these lessons. And I think now we've hit this generation where we're able to we have a lot more information at our disposal, and we're able to speak to so many different people. You look at this platform that you've created right now, these are things like, we weren't having these conversations before. There weren't even platforms to do this. You were speaking to people that were within your own circle, and your circle's usually made up of like-minded individuals. So there was no new knowledge sharing that was happening at the pace that it's happening now. But sorry, I feel like I went down a tangent there. But like, kind of going back to um, unlearning a lot of the things that we've learned. It's really just challenging everything that you know. Like, it's really that simple. Just really being curious about, somebody told me this, but why does that mean it has to be the right way to go about things?
And I think when you say unlearning, that's such a powerful thing, because there's so much that we know that hurts us, and so much that we don't know that hurts us as well. So it really is a process in sitting down, and sometimes sitting down with that professional to understand like, hey, this isn't the best way for things to happen. Myself, just I self-disclose a lot. So I tell people my personal business a lot. But one thing that I do is I will completely shut down when it comes to conflict. I completely shut down. But that's because I grew up in a home with domestic violence. And so I started experiencing trauma responses of anxiety during arguments. But I didn't learn that I was experiencing anxiety until I was in grad school and I was becoming a therapist. And one of my professors, who was a therapist, said, "You're having a trauma response to something that you experienced." And Tarsha B, she mentioned it, and this is why I brought that up, because she mentioned in her comments, she said, we're not even taught what those emotions are. We feel them, but we can't name them. And that's the thing. We have to have these conversations now so people can hear and be like, oh, I feel that way too. Could that be it? Because I did not know that for years, when my heart was pounding when someone closed the door, or when I heard a dresser, my heart was pounding from when I was a little girl till I was in grad school. I had no idea that I was experiencing anxiety because no one ever told me about anxiety. They teach you all the life lessons, say no to drugs, stay out of trouble, don't be around with this group or that group. But no one sits down and has that emotional conversation. And I think that's where it comes in, where we're in this, like you said, we're in this time, in this space where we are teaching ourselves a lot and we are letting a lot go. And because we do have the technology that we have now, we can have these conversations and these dialogues over distance and find a group, which, whether like you've created online and in person, we're able to find people to connect to. And it's that connection that makes this journey easier, because a lot of us had to go through this alone in the beginning. And it's that drive to make sure I don't want anyone else to feel alone with it. So as we're about to wrap up, I really want you to speak to, how do you feel that Black men feel is going to continue the work that it's doing? And are you looking to make it? I know that you have a presence online. That's Black Men Feel on Instagram. Anyone's looking for them. But you have safe spaces, physical spaces in New York, and I know you mentioned that in the beginning, but I want to make sure that anyone who hopped in, they're able to understand what it is, the work that you do while you're in New York, and do you have any plans to expand?
Overall, my vision is definitely to expand. I want to be able to hold these um, nationwide, worldwide, like sky's the limit, really. It's just, it's all new to me. So it's understanding how to best facilitate these spaces without myself also physically being there. I've had people that have reached, I have like, and for anybody that might be listening, I know so many people have reached out to us for collaborations from anywhere from DC to Detroit to LA, like, and it's a two-man show on top of working ridiculous hours at work. We're trying to get in touch with everybody. We're trying to roadmap out everything that we're trying to roadmap out to get to that point where we can slowly expand. But I've also learned just from past experiences, and because this isn't, I've tried so many businesses and so many organizations, so many ventures. I also because I'm so passionate about this, I'm taking things at my pace as well and making sure that I'm doing everything purposely, intentfully, and correctly, because I do want to see this succeed. But definitely, it's on the roadmap to expand and be able to hold sessions in multiple states. Working on the best way to facilitate online communities as well, because it's crazy. A friend of mine brought it up to us, and she said, you know, have you got access? If what were our thoughts on creating online communities? Because she mentioned we're creating these spaces, and people may be coming to visit us for the first time, and that's their first time opening up about their struggles with trauma, mental health, all of these things. You open up that can of worms, and now they're exposed with nowhere else to go. But on the flip side of that, which we also try to do is, as well as creating these spaces, we do also understand we're not licensed therapists. So we create the resources to teach people how to get into therapy. It's ridiculous to me how many people don't even realize that your insurance can cover your sessions. Regard, you can find out what the copay is. There's sliding scales. There's literally reaching out to universities that have that have students that are looking to, yeah. So it's just educating people every way we can on everything, and just sharing our stories as well. I think it's way deeper than just the sessions. It's educating people on therapy, as you stated, educating people on emotions. Like, I'm 28 years old. I didn't even know what anxiety was until I was probably 26. Like, it's insane. Like,
So, if there is a Black man who's listening right now and he finds himself, or a person finds himself at that point where they're doing a hard stop, in closing, what would you say to that individual to get them moving forward?
it's it's gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna be scary as hell. But you take that feeling and you lock onto that like a pit bull, because that's going to lead you in the right direction. Like, escape your comfort zone, like, deal with the harsh realities and have those really harsh conversations with yourself. um like I said earlier, the tough times, they don't last. I have this, like, I wanted to dig deeper into this analogy. A lot of people say that life's this up and down, this roller coaster full of ups and downs. And I wanted to take that a step back, and people don't realize you get on roller coasters because that ride looks like it's gonna be a really dope ride. Like, so once you jumped on that, you're on this ride for a reason, and there's gonna be a great outcome in this ride. There's gonna be the low points, but the high points are coming. You just got to keep pushing and realize that the tough times don't last.
Thank you so much for that. And with that, we are going to close for the night. Benjamin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will have your co-founder on in a couple of weeks as well. So, everyone, you can find Black Men Feel on Instagram at Black Men Feel. And be sure to look out for next week's look out for next week's series when it comes to Laqwanda's Heart live stream wellness series. And Benjamin, thank you again so much for joining us. Everyone, you have a good night. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.